All right, hey ninth graders, we are going to be doing some transformations for mappings, and we are going to need a blank sheet of scratch paper. So you can use printer paper, you can use line paper, you can rip paper out of a notebook, whatever you've got, grab one now. If you need one, I should have some on the little black cart in the front of my room. If you're in Mr. Bodley's room, he has some too, because I put some in his classroom. Okay, let's take this paper, we're gonna fold it up nicely. We'll start by folding it hamburger style. And then let's fold it in half a second time, like this. Let's do a third fold like this. So we should have a nice compacted little thing. And remember, if you are super cool, you should be able to, oh man, cool this time, unflick it with one flick of the wrist. Yeah, I'm watching to see if anybody in this room is cool while you're folding this up. Okay, so now I'm gonna switch this over, so I'll share my screen, and I wanna show you what we are going to do. That's not what I wanted to do. Share your screen, Miss Johnson. Ta-da. Okay, so we are using our paper. At the very top, we are going to write the title, which is Transformations from Mappings. And then I'm going to number these. I've got box 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 on the front side. And on the back, I'm going to label 9 and 10. But do not go past 10, because we're going to do 10 problems and we're going to use the rest of the paper for something slightly different. So let's go to problem number 1. For today's work, you are going to you're going to figure out which transformation occurred just by reading a mapping. So in box 1, I want you to write down this. I want you to write down x comma y maps to negative x comma y minus 4. Okay, so we have this mapping, and our job now is to figure out which transformation occurred here. Now, I showed you a list of all the transformations possible, and I'm going to put that list up here. So this list gives us our reflection rules, our rotation rules, and our translation rules. And let me remind you what those different things mean once the screen clears up a little. Okay, so reflection rules, we're looking for changes of x and y. For rotation rules, again, we're moving around x and y, and translations will have addition and subtraction on the x and y, which will deal with going up and down and right and left, depending on whether it's with x or with y position. So let's look at number 1. Number 1 has a negative x in part of the transformation. So I need to look at which of these things on this entire list was able to give just a negative x, because you see the y is positive. I know there's a minus 4. We'll talk about that in a second. So which one has negative x comma positive y? So if I go through here, negative x, positive y, right there, that's a reflection across the y-axis. So one of the things that happened on number 1, we are going to say reflection over the y-axis. Okay, so that's one of the things. Now let's talk about the second thing that's happening here. Do you see how it's got that minus 4 happening in the y position? So let's look at translations, because that's the only one that can add and subtract. And if this is in the y position and it's subtracting, that means you are going down 4 spaces. So I will also say translate down 4 spaces. And those are the 2 transformations that occurred. That would be our composition of transformations for problem number 1. We said it was reflection over the x-axis because the mapping had a negative x and a positive y, and that was part of our reflect over the, I might have said x-axis, I meant y-axis. And then also with this -4 in the y position, that's telling us to translate down 4 spaces. Okay, let's look at problem number 2. In box 2, I want you to write down the following mapping. It is going to begin with x comma y, and then an arrow, and it's going to x plus 10 comma negative y. Okay, let's go back to our list of mappings. Now that x plus 10, I know that that is going to be a translation. I know that at some point there's going to be a translation, and since it's in the y position and it's going plus, that's going to be going to the right that many spaces. So we know that this thing is going to translate to the right 10 spaces. So I can write that down, translate right 10 spaces. Okay, the other thing that's going on here, I've got to look at these positive and negative x's and y's. We've got an x that's positive and a y that's negative, and that changed from the original x comma y. So we need a positive x, negative y. Look through our list. Let's find a positive x. Oh, it's right there. Negative y. That's a reflection over the x-axis. Reflect over the x-axis. All right, not too shabby. I want to do one more problem with you. The problem that I would like to do is problem number 6. So everybody's going to slide down to problem 6, and let's write down the following mapping. Starts off with x comma y, and then I have an arrow, and it goes to y plus 1, comma, negative x. All right, I'm going to start with the fact that it has a y and the x mixed around. So the y is positive and in front, the x is negative on the end. Let's go to our list and see which one has a positive y in front and a negative x on the end. Positive y in front. Nope, it's none of the reflections because the only one with a positive y in front has a positive x on the end as well. Okay, let's look down here. There it is. Positive y in front, negative x on the end. That would be a 90-degree clockwise rotation. So I'm going to write down 90 degrees clockwise rotation. Remember, we can use CW for clockwise. Okay, here's something else that is going on here. And there's a very common mistake that I will see on these papers. It says y plus 1. And a lot of people look here and they say, oh, it goes up 1. The problem is it's not in the up position. Yes, it's next to y, but y is actually in the new x position. So when it says y plus 1 here, it's saying the x position is adding 1 because x's typically come first. So we're not looking at the letter necessarily because the letters got switched around. We are looking at the position, and since there is a plus 1 there, that needs to go to the right 1 space. So we will say translate 1 space right. And 9th graders, that's how you're going to do these first 10 problems. You'll notice that underneath this video, I linked the rest of the questions. Your job is to answer all of those and then follow along to the next thing. Good luck. Ask me or Mr. Bodley if you've got any questions.